It is time to sit down. It is time to sit down because we're about to start. Please sit down. I think I should stop speaking like that. Time to sit down, everyone. Sit down. Yeah. Sit down. We're gonna start soon. Gonna start soon. And I hope you're full. I really am. And it was yum food, and I can't sing, but I wish I could. It's my only flaw. And then I'm back into again. And we'll bang on the dot, 7:30. Time management. Thumbs, full, yes, half full, not full. Oh, Miranda, oh, nice one. Happiness vibes? Oh, yeah, Minister, that's the one. I feel like if no one's matching the Minister's energy right now, you should, are you really here for women? Yeah, that's the one. Oh, thank you so much. I needed that hype. When no one listened to me when I said sit down the first time, I was a bit nervous. Sound check, live stream check, is it on, is it on? Thumbs up, we ready to start? Okay, before we start, can I get a yee-haw? Yee-haw! Oh, heard some harmonies. 3, 2, 1. Tihei Māori ora. Ko te mihi tuatahi ki te atua rawa, kaha rawa. Nāna nei nā mea katoa I hanga. Kororia ki tāna ingoa tapu. Ko te mihi tuarua ki a rangi nui ki runga. Ki a papatua nuku I tākoto ano ki raro. Tēnā kōrua. E te Minister Upston, tēnā koe. Mea Tori whānau, tēnā koe. E nā kai kōrero, Dame Farah Palmer, Chloe Van Dyke, Florence Van Dyke, Dame Miranda Harcourt, tēnā koutou katoa. Ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohe, tēnā koutou katoa. E te whare tū mai nei, ka tuku nā roimata ki a koe mo te awhina mai I a mātou, tēnā koe. E nā manuhiri I hui mai nei, nau mai, haere mai ki tēnei whare whakahirahira. E nā wahine toa o Aotearoa ki te mihi mahana. E mihi whakaiti nei, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka huri ki te reo Pākehā. Mōrena, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us for the 2024 Annual International Women's Day Parliamentary Breakfast, which is dedicated to celebrating our women, to celebrating you and male allies. For the benefit of those who have just joined us via the live stream online from as far away as New York and as close as, and as close as the Grand Hall, my name is Asena Whakato Mawhi Turungamaka, and I feel very lucky to be your MC for this morning's inspiring event. Here in Parliament, we are joined by the Honourable Minister Upston, Members of Parliament, Mea Tori whānau, Heads of Mission and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dame Champions of the New Zealand Order of Merit, public servants and high school students. There are students in attendance this morning from 18 high schools in the Greater Wellington region, zooming in from the Grand Hall. Hello, high school students. This morning is a wonderful melting pot of women of different ages and from different backgrounds. They've all come together to celebrate each other. We are very fortunate to have an exciting lineup of speakers, including our host, the phenomenal Honourable Louise Upston. We are also very excited to have strong keynote speakers, Dame Farah Palmer, the Po Akonga, aka the Executive Director of Māori student success at Massey University, the former captain of the Black Ferns, and the first woman on the New Zealand Rugby Board of Management. Chloe and Florence Van Dyke, who among many achievements that I Googled, are the co-founders of Chia Sisters, and Dame Miranda Harcourt, who needs no introduction. The theme for today's event is to inspire inclusion and is proudly brought to you by the Zonta Club of Wellington. You may have noticed some yellow roses around the room, or the yellow rose that is associated with Zonta. In addition to being International Women's Day, this is also Zonta Rose Day. The adoption of the yellow rose was actually started by a New Zealander, Val Webster, and now is adopted globally by Zonta and is used to recognise those that have and continue to make a positive difference to building a better world for women and girls. Everyone here will get a yellow rose from Zonta as a thank you for attending and a recognition of the positive difference you're making by being the woman and male allies that you are in the spaces you occupy. Of all the things you could be doing this morning, including sleeping in on a Friday, thank you for choosing to be with us here today. If you're on the live stream, I'd really welcome you to keep me company. So if you can drop in the chat your name and where you're zooming from, I'd really appreciate that. Thanks, mate. As mentioned before, we're also linked up to those in the Grand Hall, including our high school students and our esteemed friends from the New Zealand Defence Force. To begin our speeches, I'll start off with the karakia and te reo Māori, the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Let us pray. E whakawhitai ana mo tēnei rā, e whakamaumahara ki ngā taonga tuku iho, ngā maunga, ngā awa, ngā moana, ngā rākau, ngā manu, hei tiritiri mo tātou katoa, o tātou wairua hei hānanga tangata kaotahi, kia mahi taho ai mō tea o hau tino pai rawa. Tihei Mauri ora. I now invite Belinda Himiona, the President of Zonta Club of Wellington, to come up and say her opening address.
Kia ora koutou, kia ora wahine tō, kia ora whānau. Ngā mahina nui kia koutou I tēnei rā. Ko Belinda Rāwia Himiona toko ingoa, ko Ngāti Apa ki Whanganui, ko Ngāti Hauati ki Rangatike ngā awa, engare e tipua ki au I kaikohe e noho ana ki Pōneke. Welcome everybody. It's terrific to be here to celebrate International Women's Day with you all. I'm Belinda, the President of the Zonta Club of Wellington. A huge thank you, Asina, for your opening of our celebrations today. You've brought terrific energy to the room. It's great to be here with you. And thank you for your karakia to settle us. And many thanks to the Acting Minister for Women, the Honourable Louise Upston, for hosting us on this fine morning. I'd like to acknowledge Ngāti Toa mana whenua of this rohe, and also I'd like to acknowledge the many fabulous speakers that I've been getting to know around the table as we've been sharing life hacks this morning already. Also acknowledge the dignitaries among us, guests from our diplomatic community, members of Parliament, and a record number of enthusiastic high school students from around Wellington who have come out bright and early as we greet the day. The Zonta Club of Wellington is proud to support today's International Women's Day breakfast. Today is a global day to celebrate the achievements of women and girls and raise awareness of issues that we continue to face. 2024's theme, To Inspire Inclusion, invites us to imagine a gender-free, a gender-equal world where women and girls are free from discrimination and are truly valued. Frankly, it shouldn't be hard, and surprisingly, we still fall far short of the mark. As part of this global movement to make a gender-equal world, I'm really just so proud to be part of Zonta. Zonta aims to build a better world for women and girls, and our efforts are directed to creating change so that we can have amazing lives. Zonta makes change locally through supporting fabulous projects like Wellington Women's House, Lower Hutt's Teen Parent Unit, and we also award a biennial science scholarship for an emerging woman scientist to encourage women in scientific fields. I hope you're listening, school students in the hall. Zonta makes change nationally through advocacy on important issues affecting Aotearoa New Zealand women in areas like healthcare, employment and violence, and through supporting national services like grandparents raising grandchildren. Zonta makes change globally through working with bodies like the United Nations and by supporting a range of surface projects around the world, including current projects to eliminate child marriage in 12 countries in Africa and Asia, and to strengthen the services for survivors of gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste. Sadly, we continue, and happily for me, we continue to need organisations like Zonta to act beside us and to act for us. As a fired up and middle-aged woman, I found Zonta a terrific and joyous place to be, where I've established enduring friendships with women of all ages, nationalities, careers and backgrounds. My Zonta circle has helped me to navigate life's hurdles as I've become an empty nester, changed careers and managed the many other things that life just decides to chuck at you with gusto. There is always someone wiser with bespoke life advice or a shoulder when you need it. Many of us here will proactively celebrate the women and girls in our own lives and no doubt fundamentally agree that discrimination and violence against women have no place in our modern world. But at an individual level, as we've come in today, I've been pondering how can we actually make an impact and support all women to thrive day to day. For me, as a community sector chief executive, I deliberately take action to build inclusivity into my leadership practice as one of the key actions I take. I support inclusion for women by amplifying the voices of women around me or at the management table when thoughts might be lost in translation. I form allyships with women so we can stand together to ensure our experiences and opinions are visible. I take time to listen and understand the unique experiences of many different women. I don't try and claim their experiences as my own, but I bring all women's voices into this conversation and into decision making. I invest my time into mentoring and coaching and championing fabulous women, and for me, particularly as a wahine Māori, focusing on wahine Māori women who might need a bit of safe place to reflect, grow and learn, and untangle the Pandora's box of all our special secret skills that can help us thrive. You will each have your own bag of wisdom for life, and from today, I invite us all to consider how we can deliberately act to build an inclusive and gender equal world as we leave the hall today. And I'm just so very much looking forward to our bouquet of delights this morning with speakers. And from this, I hope we all feel energised to act individually, nationally and globally to make the world a better place for women and girls. We can only truly be free when we are all free to live and dream. Kia ora and enjoy the rest of your International Women's Day.
Thank you, Belinda, for your words of welcome and all the work you do to champion women. And to Zonta for putting on the best International Women's Day event in Aotearoa every year. Yeah! Our first speaker for this morning is our host for the event, the Honourable Louise Upston, Minister for Social Development and Employment, Community and Voluntary Sector, Child Poverty Reduction, and Acting Minister for Women. Just a few roles there, Minister. It is my pleasure to invite the incredible Minister Upston to share her remarks.
Rauranga tira mā, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, I runga I te kaupapa o te rā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, and what a fantastic International Women's Day. I couldn't think of a better place to celebrate an extraordinary day. And Asina, you've done a wonderful job. One of the challenges when you've got a room full predominantly of women is trying to get the volume down. So I think we've started incredibly well, and I want to have a particular shout out to the students in the Grand Hall. I went over and said hello briefly to them. And so I'm expecting, and it was actually the volume in the other room to be probably louder than this one, because we hope that at 16, 17, 18 you've got less filters, and we encourage them to keep those filters off. So good morning and happy International Women's Day to you all. It is a pleasure to be joining you to celebrate what a fantastic occasion it is, the contributions and achievements of girls and women across New Zealand. I want to thank particularly the Zonta Club of Wellington, Belinda, for hosting this breakfast event and for all the work that the Zonta Clubs, not just across New Zealand, but across the world, do for women and girls. I want to specially acknowledge my colleagues, my parliamentary colleagues, Barbara Kuriga and Simon Court. Thank you for being here. And Mayor Tori Whānau. We have a range of other dignitaries this morning that have been acknowledged, and I would like to particularly thank all of the NGOs that are represented here in the day, especially now in my role as the Minister for Community and Voluntary. The very incredibly special work that you all do. Can I say thank you on behalf of the New Zealanders, particularly the women and girls that you serve. There are fantastic individuals, as I say, the students from across the schools in Wellington. I think it's a record number that we've got here today. So my encouragement and my challenge for next year is let's see if we can even grow that number even more, because that's a big part of what we need to do, is inspire the next generation of leaders across New Zealand. And to the speakers that are going to be joining me on the podium this morning, I must say I was a bit kind of girl fanish and a bit sort of in awe about who I was going to be followed by on the stage. So a very big welcome to Dame Miranda Harcourt, to Dame Farah Palmer, welcome, and to Chloe and Florence Van Dyke and baby Van Dyke. So welcome, welcome. I also want to give a special mention to the team from the Ministry for Women. I'm really fortunate. I'd been a Minister for Women previously, and the Ministry for Women team do fantastic work, so a special shout out to you as well. When we speak about gender equality and today's breakfast theme, Inspire Inclusion, we're not just talking about the interests of women. When we talk about the progress of women, we are talking about the progress of New Zealand. This year's UN Women's theme for International Women's Day focused on investing in women to accelerate progress and achieve gender equality. It highlights the important role women play in the political, social, and economic fabric of our country. I'm proud of the inroads that New Zealand has made into advancing gender equality. Today, passengers across New Zealand have flown on all-women crewed planes. And the Prime Minister is in Auckland this morning visiting a newly built home in West Auckland where the design and construction crew are all women. Yesterday, I was thrilled to spend some time with a group of women that work across non-traditional sectors. There were women in dairy, rural women, women in infrastructure, trades, construction. There were women in energy. There was a wide range. My favourite one was women in wine. I thought that was one that I could join, perhaps. But it really just goes to show that women across New Zealand are pushing the boundaries on a daily basis and wanting to promote opportunities for equal participation and inspiring others to join along. So in New Zealand, women's leadership has been on an upward trajectory in recent years. Women MPs currently make up 43% of the Parliament, but it's just interesting to reflect for a moment, and both Barbara and I are wearing camellias, which were presented to us on the 125th celebration of women's suffrage. So the first female MP in Parliament was 1933. When I came to Parliament in 2008, my number is 108. So it's still a pathetically low number. And my very direct challenge to the students in the Grand Hall was I'd like to see that many of them consider public office in the future, and there's many of us that are happy to guide them in that journey. Women currently hold 53.1% of public sector boards and committee roles, which is brilliant. And while we've improved performance on the public sector boards, unfortunately we've still got a long way to go in the private sector. 28.5% of director positions are held by women and 26.4% of executive management positions across the NZX listed companies. We're seeing some amazing and concerted efforts through groups like Global Women's Champions for Change, where there are more than 80 leading chief executives and chairs of organisations helping to drive diverse leadership in workplaces. Last year, this group achieved 40-40-20 gender balance at board level. That means that there were 40% women, 40% men, and 20% other gender. So congratulations, it shows that really deliberate action can get results. Other organisations like the Institute of Directors and Women on Boards New Zealand are also focused on increasing women in leadership and governance, and I hope that together we can demonstrate to other businesses and organisations the value of having more women on their boards and at the leadership table. Having more women in leadership also helps address the gender pay gap. On average, men earn 8.6% more than women in New Zealand. And while that is great compared to many other countries around the world, it is still 8.6%. In the past, the pay gap was driven by factors such as differences in education and the occupations and industries that men and women worked in, or the fact that women were more likely to work part-time. These are issues that we can absolutely work to address, but we also know that these factors only explain 20% of the gap. Women have made important advances in education over the past few decades, with women leaving school with NCEA Level 2 or above and graduating with tertiary degrees at a higher rate than men. Women's participation in the labour force has also increased, and we're being encouraged into careers where men have traditionally worked, like the STEM fields and construction. But despite all of that, there is still a bias against women, which makes pay gaps harder to address. We need to consciously work together to remove these biases. Around 200 businesses across New Zealand are already voluntarily reporting their gender pay gap via the Mind the Gap website and taking actions to reduce them. There is more work to be done on pay gap reporting, and the government is looking at ways to address this. I'm also particularly concerned at the gender health gap inequities, and it is a priority of our government to reduce this gap. I was pleased to be part of our recent announcement to take steps to extend breast cancer screening, increasing the age from 70 to 74. Breast cancer affects so many New Zealand women and their families, and there's more to do. There's also more to do in other gender-specific health issues, and one that is particularly close to me is gynecological cancers. So while we've made some great progress into the advancement of women, these gains can't be taken for granted. We need to be bold, we need to be courageous, we need to safeguard the progress we've already made by continuing to invest in, empower and educate women and girls. So I ask you today to celebrate the girls and women in your life, in your home, in your family, in your workplace, and your community. Thank them, support them, inspire them. Together, we can achieve more.
Minister, thank you very much for hosting this IWD event. In your speech, you champion women's successes, their contributions to leadership, whilst also recognising the challenges such as the gender pay gap and the biases that many women still face in their personal and professional lives. Please accept these Zonta roses as a sign of our appreciation In recognition of your position as Acting Minister, a champion for women and girls. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the brilliant Dame Farah Palmer, former captain of the Black Ferns, first ever female board member for Rugby New Zealand, former deputy chair of the New Zealand Rugby, and the current Po Akonga, aka the executive director of Māori Student Success at Massey University. Hailing from Te Kuiti in the King Country, Dame Farah inspires diversity through her passion for promoting opportunities for women and Māori in leadership and encouraging diversity, equality, and inclusion within organisational context. Please welcome the trailblazing Dame Farah Palmer to the stage.
Ko waia hou, ko he mamaku enganguru nei, hi au e ha. Ko hine ahuone, ko hine titama, ko hine nui te pō, ki te whae au, ki te ao marama e. Hi a ha ha, tu mai ra koe, te mana wahine, kia ora. I had to start that way because I'm really nervous, and I was doing a wiri, and it's all about bringing your ihi, your wihi, and your wana to this moment. And thank you very much for the lovely introduction. So, kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Ko wai au, ko whararangi koepa Palmer taku ingoa, he uri au no ngā kawai heke o Maniapoto Waikato. He Pau Akonga kei te kuninga ki Pūrehiroa. It's lovely to be here. My name is Farah Palmer, and my name has a lot of weight behind it, but the biggest weight is when young children come up to me and ask me if I was named after that cup, which is now the provincial union competition for women's rugby. So I think that's awesome that the cup is more famous than I am. I hail from Maniapoto and Waikato, from actually, although I was born in Te Kuiti, lived in Piopio. And I am very proud of the fact that I have a role at the university that is encouraging more Māori to kind of see all their opportunities through tertiary education, but also trying to do what I can in the rugby space. So I'm feeling really nervous, and I'm really, really privileged to be here with the other speakers and also with all you wahine toa. So I started with the first verse of the Black Ferns haka. And I started with it because I think that kind of feels like what we're all here trying to do. So I said, who am I, who am I? I am a black fern, I am a black fern. Once a black fern, always a black fern. I'm number 68 in terms of being capped as a black fern. And I talk about the rumble, like we're here, hear the rumble. And then I refer to 3 female deities, Hine Ahuone, Hine Titama, Hine Nui Te Pō. So Hine Ahuone was the first woman, first human, and she was female. Hine Titama was her daughter, and Hine Nui Te Pō was the guardian of the afterlife. So there are some messages in there in terms of those 3 roles and what they represent in Te Ao Māori, and how we can use those as maybe some ways of weaving together the meaning in the stories that I'll share. I then talk about gaining Māori from the sky, from the whenua, so from things that maybe we're not sure about and we're still trying to reach for, but also where we are, our place and our space in this world. And like gathering clouds, ngā kapua whakapipi, that's what that's kind of about. We all gather together at times, and we try, is that mine? Sorry, that's my alarm. Thank you. So like gathering clouds, we come together around the tallest mountain. And the tallest mountain is often those things that we're trying to achieve, those challenges, those points that we really, really want to try and make a difference in. So how can we do that? So I just wanted to share a little bit of that. So I'm going to talk today about my firsts, my lasts, and the lessons in between, and I'm going to use haka to explain my journey. Now, I started writing my speech last night, and I was in a different headspace back then, and I was, as you can imagine, the haka and the role of women in haka is very, very topical at the moment in terms of what's happening in the rugby space. So I'm going to use that and take that energy and use it. Hopefully it's going to show you about how we can use that to inspire and include. So it is lovely to be here. I was actually here last night. It was Kushla Tangaire Manuel's maiden speech in Parliament, and I know Kushla really well. She was the first female CEO of a provincial union here in Aotearoa, Ngāti Porou East Coast, obviously, where she's from, and she was also on the New Zealand Māori Rugby Board with me. So it was really lovely and uplifting to see Kushla and her whānau and everyone there in that moment. So I'm going to go back to 1991. 1991, I was at Pio College, or kind of finishing up there, and there was an annual married versus singles men's rugby game at the Pio Rugby Club. And that was an annual event, and this year, for some reason, 1991, they thought it would be funny and entertaining if there was a women's game as a curtain raiser. So they literally just said to all the women that were watching on the sideline, who wants to play a game? And I was young and feeling fit, so I thought, yep, I'll have a go. So I signed up. They gave us about 5 minutes of coaching. We probably got the rugby jerseys that the men used the day before, so they were all too big and stinky and smelly. And yeah, literally learning as we were going. I just really fell in love with playing this game where I could use my body. I had to be totally focused mentally and physically. And, you know, after playing netball, you're not allowed to go in certain parts of the court, you're not allowed to touch anybody, you've got to wear, in those days, wear the right underwear and have your nails cut and everything. There just seemed no restrictions in rugby, which I really enjoyed. And I remember getting the ball. I was like, oh, this is what the ball looks like. What do I do? And I thought, okay, shall I like sidestep through everybody, or shall I just kind of like bowl everyone over? In the end, I think I just literally had to run and hold on to the ball, and I fell down and I scored a try. And another player who was a big lady, and in rugby being a big person is a positive, she came up to me, and I wasn't quite ready for it, and I was still holding onto the ball, and she said, great try, Farah. She whacked me on the back, I fell forward, I landed on the ball, and I winded myself. So there I am in a heap, trying to breathe in oxygen, winding myself. I have learnt a lot since that point, and at many times throughout my career in rugby, I have felt winded. So that was way back in 1991. But there was something about that game that really just stayed with me. Little did I know that in 1991, the New Zealand women's rugby team were playing in their very first official Rugby World Cup. And they were trying to figure out how they could stamp their mark on it. So they decided that they would do the haka. So Laurie O'Reilly was the coach at the time, and he sought permission from Ngāti Toa Rangatira to do kamate. He said that he had obtained permission, so the team decided to do that haka. Debbie Chase, who was one of the more outspoken and confident Māori players, was asked if she would lead it. And she talks about how that was such a significant moment for her, and she wanted to do it properly. And to her, doing it properly was doing it the way she saw the men doing it. So she went out there and she gave 100%. She had a wide stance and she was giving it heaps. They did well in that tournament. They didn't win, but they played really well. But when they got home, there was a furor about them doing the haka. And they said women shouldn't be doing the haka, and it was shameful. So even back then in 1991, women were being told what they should do and how they should do it. So fast forward to 1995, I had been playing rugby and I got into the trials for the New Zealand team and I got into the team. I couldn't believe it. Here was this girl that got winded not so long ago, playing rugby because she loved it, and now here I am being named in the New Zealand team. And I just thought, how did this happen? In those days, I rang up on the landline phone, and you had to queue up because it was a pay phone. And I remember ringing up my dad going, Dad, I'm an All Black, because we didn't have a name back then. We just knew that the All Blacks was what everyone associates with being in a New Zealand national team. And I'm pretty sure I heard my dad crying on the other side of the line and my mum asking me if I was going to be okay and safe. So 1995 was another big moment. And in those days, you got $30 a day. And it was presented to however long you were together, you'd get $30 a day, and it was presented to you in an envelope. So we have come a long way from 1995 getting $30 a day to now having fully contracted players, female players in the teams at the national level and also at the Super Rugby level. So 1995 was also around the time that I started to be asked to be the captain, and we used to do a Ngāti Porou East Coast haka, and when I was the captain, I'm not from Ngāti Porou, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that haka. So we decided we needed a new haka. So we came up with our own haka, which I shared a little bit with you before, and we performed that at the 2002, we performed that haka. There was another moment as well, which I felt was a key moment, and that was in 1998 when we decided to call ourselves the Black Ferns. So we were playing overseas and everyone was calling us the female All Blacks or the Gal Blacks or the Lady Blacks. We're like, we want to be in charge of what we call ourselves. So we had a team meeting and we've said, okay, what about the Black Ferns? Black is what everyone associates with sports teams in New Zealand, and Ferns is what they associate with female sports teams. So we put the two together, not really thinking much of it. So we announced that on the Home Show. If anyone's old enough to remember the Home Show, we got interviewed and we talked about that. And we said we want to be called the Black Ferns. We had to wait till we came back and they did 6 months worth of marketing research, and then they came back and told us that yes, Black Ferns was a great name. Because the black fern is the mamaku, is the matriarch of the forest, so there were lots of deeper meanings. But we announced that that was our official name in 1998, and Jeannie Shipley was the Prime Minister at that time, and Helen Clark was the leader of the opposition, and I was the captain. And so it's quite amazing, you know, that was a first in terms of a female Prime Minister, and we were kind of on our own journey, so we were aligning there. So I always feel like if people say sport and politics don't mix, that's not accurate at all. Sport and politics mix all the time. Sometimes you don't see it because it's often reflecting the dominant culture at the time, and other times it's really, really obvious because it's challenging. So fast forward to my last game in 2006, I had decided it was time for me to retire. We had our new haka that we were doing, the team was well established, and it was time for me to go because my body was telling me it had enough. The last game was the final of the World Cup, and it was the last play. I looked at the clock and it said 82 minutes on the clock, and I said to the ref, are we finished yet? We were just in front of the English team, and the ref said, nope, we've got time to play. Far out. Okay, so we kicked the ball off to England, and their winger gets the ball. And I'm standing on the wing going, okay, I'll talk her out of it. Come on. Yeah, I've got you. I didn't have her. But luckily for me, she ran straight at me and she tried to run over the top of me. I managed to grab her. I'm at the bottom of the ruck. Everyone's piling on top trying to get the ball. I don't know where the ball is. And I'm winded because, as you can imagine, a whole bunch of people are on top of me. And when I finally get up, I see our fullback running down the other wing, scoring a try and winning the game. So I started my rugby career winded, and I ended my rugby career winded. But there was a lot of stuff that we achieved in that time. 2006, I thought I was done with rugby. And then 10 years later, I get shoulder tapped and asked if I'd like to go onto the New Zealand Rugby Board. As some of you may remember, that was a pretty tumultuous year for rugby. The stripper gate and, the way that women were treated in rugby was kind of on everyone's minds. How do we fix that? Let's put a woman on the board. Now, I knew that was just trying to take the pressure off rugby. I knew that I would be seen as this token gesture, but like in rugby, if you see a space and you think you've got the skills and abilities, take it. So I decided to take that opportunity. And I knew that it would be a challenge, but I had a thought in my mind. Somebody has to be the first. I didn't want to be the only. And when I left, I wanted to make sure that women felt welcome in that environment. So I did join in 2016, being the first woman on the board, and I was welcomed in with a whakatau, and that's when it hit me and I started to kind of like feel the weight of the expectation. I had a big tangi as I was being welcomed in, and I remember going to my first board meeting and wanting to sit close to the chair, and I went to sit down and I saw this shadow kind of coming behind me, and it was two tall ex-locks who were now on the board saying, "This is where we sit." I said, well, I'm going to sit here because I'm partially deaf, so I need to sit close to the chair, and they had to move somewhere else. So I was already starting to ruffle a few feathers. I'm using these kind of examples. Of course, there's lots more that goes on behind the scenes in terms of reading the documents, but that's a bit more boring. So I'm just sharing with you some of these kind of anecdotes to highlight some of the challenges. They didn't know what to give me. Usually the board members get a tie. What do we give you? So they created these silk scarves that they give us. So there were efforts to do that, and now we've got a range of people on the board and a range of diversity. When I got on the board in 2016, there was a diversity report, and the diversity report had about 9 or 10 recommendations, and the first recommendation was to have a female on the board, so they crossed that off straight away as soon as I was there, and I'm pretty sure that report got kind of like shelved because I was on the board. So, it was just starting. The challenge was just starting. The game, my kind of second phase of my career in rugby, was just starting. We also had a respect and responsibility review, and that came up with loads of recommendations, and more recently we've had a governance review. It wasn't over. Getting on the board wasn't everything. In 2018, I got asked if I'd like to go over to Ireland and try and get the hosting rights for the Rugby World Cup 2021. I stood in front of a rugby council that was predominantly male, and I started with a haka. I actually took my shoes off and did a full-on haka just to kind of ease my nerves. But I think it worked because we won the rights to host the Rugby World Cup. And then 2022 was when we actually had the Rugby World Cup, and we opened on our first game with the haka that I helped to bring about, and the players added to it with a karanga. And so if you remember that night, they did 3 of the players did a karanga. So what I'm saying is that each generation, each kind of person that's given an opportunity to be in a position of influence adds something to the conversation and makes a difference in whatever way they can. The final versus England was also great to see again, and I felt like I was playing another game just watching that final and seeing them win. Fast forward to 2024, and the Hurricanes Paua have done a haka recently, and I'm sure you're all aware of the controversy behind it. And I just want to encourage you all to see this as an opportunity to have continuing conversations, to see why they felt that was the right moment to express themselves. Yes, the way they did it may not have been ideal, but we need to continue to have those conversations. 2024 will be my last year on the board. And when people say, women, you can do it all, I don't believe that's the case. It's been challenging trying to fit it all in and to focus on the things that are priorities for me. But I think if you can prioritise and you can feel like where you want to spend your energy, it is possible. So it will be my last year on the board. I started as the first. We have since now got more diversity around the board table. We have 4 women on the board, so we've reached our gender diversity target, finally, of 40%. I am so fortunate to be around people like Dame Patsy Reddy, Rowena Davenport and Catherine Savage, who have added a diversity of thought and expertise to our conversations around the board. I want to leave you with this idea of intersectionality as well. I don't stand here just as a woman. I stand here as a woman grappling with her Māori identity, trying to figure out where my place is. We all bring our sexuality, our religious beliefs, our backgrounds. So we're not just all women, we all are diverse as well. And I think we should all forgive ourselves. We will make mistakes. We will get winded. We will kind of like stand up and make a statement, and maybe it's not taken the way that it was intended or hoped. So for me, it's about seeing that everybody has hineahuni in them. Everyone has someone who has to be the first to do something, and you learn, you make mistakes, no one tells you what the rules are, you're trying to kind of like set the path for others. Hine titama, we all have children or a daughter in particular who challenges us, who wants to do things completely different to us. You know, this generation of rugby players are different to my generation of rugby players. They don't want to just be happy with getting $30 a day. They want to challenge. They're not happy with having jerseys that don't fit. They want to be able to have some jerseys that actually fit a female body. They want to be able to make a living playing rugby, and they want to contribute in the media, and governance, and coaching, not just in playing rugby. And then there's Hine Nui Te Pō. There are those women in this room who have lots of wisdom, lots of knowledge, and what do you do with all that wisdom and knowledge, and how do you decide where you're going to have an influence and an impact? So that's me really. Hopefully those stories all kind of like weave in for you. I just want to wish you all the best, and I'm really, really proud to be a wahine and to be here today. So ngā mihi nui. Kia ora.
Well, that's a very hard performance, wasn't it, to follow? Am I expected to do a haka in return? They didn't tell me about that. No. I've still got my shoes on, but I feel grounded. And can I have a cup, please? A cup. Dame Farah, you are clearly a woman of distinction, and you've certainly inspired inclusion, our theme for today. Thank you for sharing your vision and passion with us. We could feel that. International Women's Day is time to recognize the progress that women are striving to improve our society. Well, you were doing it in buckets. A leading light for women in the realms of sport, the boardroom, the lecture room, the community, as well as highlighting the significance and importance of te reo. All this you have pointed out to us this morning. Today, it's our chance to affirm our commitment to true gender equality. Tēnā rawa tu koe, Dame Farah. Thank you very much, Dame Farah, from everyone here, and for supporting the Zonta Club of Wellington, and for all you are doing to raise the status of women. Thank you. Please accept these. I have a little envelope in here. $30 a day.
Thank you, Dame Farah. How's everyone on the live stream going? Drop us a note in the chat when you get a chance. Would love to see how you're doing. Coming up next in our jam-packed agenda for this morning, we have a dynamic sister duo. Introducing the remarkable Chloe and Florence Van Dyke, the founders of Chia Sisters, a majority woman-owned and led health beverage company supplying cafes and supermarkets nationally and in Australia, Hong Kong, and the USA. The Chia Sisters journey began in 2012 when Chloe set out to create an all-natural drink that provided long-lasting energy and hydration. Chloe is an Obama Asia Pacific leader. Florence was recognized in the Forbes Fruity Under 30 list, and both are Edmund Hillary Fellows. On top of all of that, as you're about to see, Florence is a new mom to baby Frida, who is going to be a featuring star in the speeches. Please help me in welcoming the amazing Chloe and Florence Van Dyke.
Haere takamua, takamuri kua iwai. Tina koutou katoa. Ko Florence toku ingoa, ko Chloe tine, ko tuahine. Ko Frida tine, ko pipi. Ko whangamoa te maunga, ko mahitahi te awa. Ko aurere te moana. Tine te mihi mahana kia koutou, tina koutou, tina koutou, tina koutou katoa.
We are here at Parliament. And what is Parliament if not a platform to make our lives and those of the future better? A platform that should evolve over time, should challenge the status quo, and should reflect back to us our collective moral compass at any given time. There was a moment at Chia Sisters where Florence and I realised that we had a platform. We could use our business as a platform, a testing ground, not only to challenge the status quo, but to challenge our own ideals. What would it look like if we put our morals, our emotive beliefs, all the things that we thought could be done better to practice and at scale? Or was it naive to think that our values could possibly stack up competitively in the commercial world? But let's take a step back for a moment. Chia Sisters began as a way to fuel my sister Florence, who was competing for New Zealand in triathlons, and our dad, an age group world champion swimmer. My background is in neuroscience and herbal medicine, so I have an interest in plant nutrition and bioactives. For them, I formulated drinks rich in omega-3, magnesium, calcium, iron, zinc, electrolytes, and fibre, nutrients that we tend to need more of in our diet. Nutrients that contribute to cognitive function, gut health, immunity, and energy levels. I formulated these drinks for them, not as a business. But what soon became apparent was that it was more than just my dad and my sister, or even athletes, that could benefit. And so Chia Sisters was formed.
To begin with, our business grew steadily. We entered new worlds and countdown supermarkets, and with Callaghan Innovation, we invented and designed bespoke bottling equipment that would enable us to increase the bioavailability of the nutrients in our beverages, essentially making the nutrition more accessible to the body and also giving us a unique drink on the Australasian marketplace. We didn't own our own factory, so we installed that equipment into the brewery next door to where we leased a warehouse, pretty much using our life savings. And we continued to grow. We entered export markets like Australia and Singapore and Hong Kong, and we started launching new ranges. And then, all of a sudden, we hit a roadblock. The brewery that our production equipment was permanently installed in, that we'd bespokely designed, it went into liquidation with just 4 weeks' notice. And at that time, we had a decision to make. Do we close up shop, which was the very real option for us, or do we move into that factory, into the brewery, made for a company maybe 10 times our size? It would require us to implement an export-grade food safety plan, hire a production manager, production staff. So we took a real leap of faith and we decided to move in, essentially transitioning from a company that innovated and sold drinks to one that produced them as well in just over 4 weeks.
Most importantly, making this decision made us think more carefully about our values and how we wanted to run our business. If we were going to go all in, if we were going to fully commit, then we wanted to create a business that we were proud of. So we decided to use this huge disruption as a turning point, and we wrote into our constitution that we would prioritise the well-being of people and the environment. And we would use our company as a testing ground to demonstrate if this could be done both profitably and with high growth.
What we did know and what we didn't need to test is that if we were to put our values into practice, we wouldn't create a company that was dominated by one gender and ethnicity in leadership and in the boardroom. We wouldn't create a company where we could exploit workers or where we could pay people a certain amount based on their gender rather than their skill set or their work ethic. What we knew is that if we were to put our values into practice, we wouldn't create a business world where investors prioritised male-owned businesses, where companies could dump waste into landfill at best and oceans at worst, where businesses could create products that fueled obesity and heart disease, and where CO2 could be pumped into the atmosphere at little cost to the emitter, but at a huge cost to the planet. What we wanted to test is what it would look like if women led our business, were majority shareholders and represented over 50% of the boardroom. What we wanted to test is what it would look like if we measured and reduced our carbon emissions and our waste, if we implemented circular packaging solutions, installed renewable energy, solar panels, if we made beverages that contributed to our health, if we paid our workers fairly, and if we worked to have a positive impact on the people and the planet. Were we naive to aspire to run a business in this way, to run a profitable business in this way that would stack up competitively in the commercial world?
This is how we went about testing that. First, we lined our factory with solar panels to create renewable energy. Now, people often ask us if the cost of the solar panels justify themselves in savings to the power bill. And the short-term answer to that is no. But the question is wrong because when we lined our factory with solar panels, we created a new juice range called Bottled by the Sun, the sales of which paid for the solar panels in their first year. And now, many years later, we're still benefiting from those reductions to our power bill. So really what the question should have been is, can it be profitable to be ethical? And in this case, the answer was most certainly yes.
A second change that we made is that we wanted to treat our people well because we knew that they were and are our most important asset. So we hired the production staff that had been on the factory line at the brewery and we lifted their pay from the minimum wage to the living wage to become Nelson's first certified living wage employer. Just as importantly, we take time to get to know our team members, their personal goals and values. And for a lot of the team, including myself with 9-week-old Frida, whānau is a priority. So we work to make their work hours fit around that where they can. The juggle is different for each team member, but it is always hard. The maths around how we're meant to fit all of our competing priorities into the day just often doesn't stack up.
And at Chia Sisters, we certainly haven't got it right yet, but we're doing our very best to create a work environment that supports and fits around our team's family life and hobbies. We have an amazing team, and it's because of that amazing team that in the past year we have grown faster than ever before. And that is despite not being able to break the investment gender bias. Last year we tried and failed to secure investment. In New Zealand, out of every 100 businesses invested in, 11 of those are founded by women. And when women do raise investment, it is 1.7 times less than their male counterparts. So we decided to do it regardless, blowing out of the water our revenue and profitability targets, far exceeding our forecasts. the same forecast that we provided to investors, the same forecast that we thought we needed capital to achieve. And we no longer require investment because we are generating it ourselves. Another change that we made was to reduce our carbon emissions. We cared about the planet and we wanted to act on that. So we broke this huge project down into 3 parts. Firstly, we hired a climate consultant that showed us our carbon footprint. That gave us the data to understand the problem that we're trying to solve. Secondly, we used that carbon footprint to identify our carbon hotspots, and with our team, we problem solved all of the ways that we could decrease them. So we did that by reducing our air freight, by insulating our bottling line, shifting to electric vehicles, we reduced our waste, and we implemented the solar panels. Thirdly, we built this process into our business decision making so that for every single business decision going forward, we could understand the impact of that business decision on our carbon footprint. And through this process, we've decreased our carbon emissions by 17% while more than doubling the size of our company. But we recognise that climate change isn't going to be solved by an individual business. It requires businesses, industries, competitors to come together. So we, Florence and I, along with 2 other women, formed Businesses for Climate Action, which brings businesses together in the Te Toihu region to collectively share carbon data and carbon solutions so that we can come up with blueprints for best business practice. Out of Businesses for Climate Action, and another amazing group of women created the Refill Revolution, a revolution that promotes the circular economy to reduce single-use packaging. From that, Chia Sisters launched pressed juice and returnable refillable 30-litre kegs, which over the next few years will save 45 tonnes of single-use plastic. But it is the snowball effect of others that will have the real impact. It is the Refill Revolution events that are being held throughout the country by many organisations such as Kokako Coffee, Pix Peanut Butter, Solid and EcoStore and many more that will have the real impact. Impact far greater than what we could ever achieve by ourselves. That was 4 women sitting on the floor in my living room deciding that we wanted to create change. Here we have a room full, and beyond that, many more. The real questions that we need to ask ourselves are, why is the status quo so hard to change? And does it need to be that difficult? Why are gender biases so ingrained when there is no need for them? Why is the juggle so real, and does it have to be? Why are we so slow to act on climate change when the solutions are right there in front of us? And why are so many of us told that we can't have it all? The reason that we can't have it all is because the model in which we operate doesn't allow it. And that is not specific to women or to parents, but anyone who is committed to supporting another person or something beyond themselves. The model in which we operate doesn't allow it because it has been designed so that our family life, our environment, our community is supposed to support and wrap around our work, when surely it should be the other way around. And who are they that designed this model? Who are they that thought that this was the way that business just had to be? The elusive they. The elusive they is our subconscious bias, our absolute ability in the status quo, our learned experience that has become so ingrained that we fail to recognise or even see that there could possibly be another way. It is our subconscious bias that sits in boardrooms, that writes and votes on policy, that is the interviewer, that is the investor, that is the business, the government. But here today, all of us have platforms. Whether you are writing or voting on policy, whether you are sitting in a boardroom or at the dinner table or at everyday conversation, see the bias that filters into every day, every moment, and call it out, challenge it. Because it's time for a new model, a model that inspires inclusion, a model where our environment, our community is surrounded and supported. It's time for a new model of inspired inclusion for the better good of everyone that is designed to see women succeed. Nō reira, kua mutu taku kōrero anai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Morena koutou, sorry. Really, really excited to thank you guys. I just had to get up there halfway through. I'm so sorry. Thank you both for speaking today and sharing your stories. It's truly incredible to hear about the passion and the dedication you have for both sustainable and ethical business practices. And also, like, specifically putting women at the forefront of this kind of movement. It's really incredible to see that, especially as a young wahine. It's really, really exciting. Yeah, so again, it's an honour to have you both here, and your little baba too. Yeah, it's just really exciting, women leading businesses, and what this means for the future, and what women in the future can and most definitely will do. So thank you for being here. Thank you from Zonta. Thank you from every person here. It's really incredible to have you here. And again, I'm so sorry for running in on your speech. Sorry. Do you want me to bring them down? Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Florence. Our final speaker for this morning is the brilliant and vivacious Dame Miranda Harcourt. World-acclaimed acting coach, Dame Miranda works with stars like Nicole Kidman, Dev Patel, Zac Efron, and her own daughters, actresses Thomasin and Davida McKenzie. The former head of acting of Toi Whakaari, New Zealand Drama School, Miranda began her career at the age of 2 in the performing arts family led by her mother, Dame Kate Harcourt, who was a charter member of the Zonta Club of Wellington, and her father, broadcaster Peter Harcourt. Dame Miranda is also proud to be an ambassador for Women's Refuge. On that impressive note, I invite Dame Miranda Harcourt to familiar territory, the stage.
Kia ora tātou te whānau. Kia ora wāhine toa. Ko Miranda Harcourt aho, thank you very much for your introduction, and it's a pleasure to be the final speaker today. I feel so inspired by what we've heard today. Thank you so much for your wonderful words and your representations of the different aspects of our culture in politics, in sport, and business. And my job today is to add the note of the creative arts. And I want to begin that by asking you just to look behind you, on the wall up behind you. I have been in the Beehive many times, and I always look at this beautiful artwork. It's a mural by John Drawbridge. And what's interesting today on International Women's Day is that this mural, which has been up here in the banquet hall at Parliament for a long time, it's by John Drawbridge, but John Drawbridge's wife, Tanya Ashkin, has finally found her moment. It's now that Tanya Ashkin has achieved the respect and the admiration that her husband, John Drawbridge, had in his lifetime. And now, in the wake of the Louise Bourgeois show in Sydney, which I saw recently, an incredible representation of brilliant work by an older female artist, Louise Bourgeois, Tanya Ashkin is finally finding her moment, which is so exciting. So that's a wonderful way to begin what I have to say here. I want to welcome the high school students. I hope this is the live stream over here. And I want to welcome you high school students, and I want to read out the high schools that are attending here. Aotea College, Heretatonga College, Hutt Valley High School. I'm sure that in the live stream room they're hurraying while I'm reading out their names. Mana College, Queen Margaret College, Sacred Heart, Marsden, which is my alma mater, Kia ora Marsden, Scots College, St Catherine's College, St Mary's College, St Orans, Taita College, Te Aho o Te Kura Pounamu, Upper Hutt College, Wainuiamata High School, Wellington East Girls College, Wellington Girls, and Wellington High School. how wonderful that these young people are here with us today, because really, as other speakers have said, it is all about you young women of the future. Kia ora, Honourable Louise, Upston, the politicians, diplomats, women and workers here today. Welcome to you all far and wide across the globe. I love Wellington, Te Whanganui a Tara, my hometown, and may I just say how much I value having Tory Whānau as our mayor. Tory represents the best kind of leadership. Visible, you have Riz. Charismatic, funny, fearless, passionate, an arts proponent, as well as a business and green proponent. Tory, I think you are the embodiment of inspiration and inclusion, and we are proud to have you as our mayor. I'm looking forward today to receiving my Zonta Yellow Rose at the end of this breakfast from you, Rose Lakama. Where are you, Rose? I think Rose is going to be giving me a yellow rose. I'm looking forward to that moment, whoever's going to be giving it to me. And I'm proud to represent here Women's Refuge as part of my kaupapa here this morning. My mother, Dame Kate Harcourt, couldn't be here with us today. She was here last year. But at nearly 97, it's just a little bit too early for Kate to be up this morning. But I'm going to take that yellow rose to her, or those yellow roses to her, in celebration of her long-time Zonta Club membership. I brought her Zonta medallion with me this morning. It's really tiny. You can see it in my hand here. And I remember Zonta meetings at our house in the 1970s, when I was just a kid. A group of inspirational women together, sitting on the floor, as you talked about, a group of 4 women sitting on the floor creating inspirational change. Wow, that is the way to do it. I would watch these women discussing and strategizing. Burke Honey, Pat Everson, Aroya Day, Kitty Carr, Dame Margaret Sparrow, Shona Kenderdine. They were a mixture of artists, actors, doctors, teachers, businesswomen, and lawyers. That was an inspiring way to grow up, seeing women's voices lifted in unison to create change. And that, of course, is the theme of our breakfast today, Inspire Inclusion. All the speakers this morning have approached these words and theme in different ways. From a business perspective, thanks to Chloe and Florence and Frida. From a sports diversity and equity perspective, thanks to you, Dame Farah. The way this theme impacts me is in the responsibility that we have in the creative arts to make sure that all our communities and perspectives are reflected and represented. And sometimes that means actively breaking down old, accustomed hierarchies so that more people get to have a say, so that more voices are heard and witnessed. So right now, in fact, right after this breakfast, my partner, playwright Stuart Mackenzie, and I will go right back to work on a new piece of verbatim theatre which focuses directly on that challenge to inspire through inclusion, to celebrate diverse voices. It'll be staged in May at Circa Theatre over there. The creative tūranga waiwai of another inspirational woman, Dame Carolyn Henwood, who was the first female judge here in Wellington and has fought for diversity and inclusion her whole life, someone who I admire so much. I speak about this creative work because it is resonant for this very place, the Beehive. The play dives into the turbulent history and impact of the recent parliamentary protests. And the voices are diverse ones. In fact, they are in direct conflict with each other. Our job as creative artists is to trust the audience, to give time and space to all of these conflicting voices fairly so that you, the audience, can see our shared yet contested history reflected and make your own decision about what you see. It's time to change the way we tell our stories, to change who gets the chance to tell their story. And I really think that Aotearoa New Zealand is leading the way in that change. In my work as a coach and a guide for actors, directors and creative people, I travel around the world to the Toronto Film Festival, to London, where I teach at the National Film School there, and to NYU Tisch. They're 2 of the top film schools in the world, and they really value what I represent coming from Aotearoa New Zealand in the fresh way that we see things. My travels and my experiences on set, on the film sets all over the world. Yesterday, I was on Zoom on the roof of a potato farm in Chengdu, 5 hours out of Chengdu, actually, in the Tibetan Plateau. So that's where I was yesterday. And then last week I was in Australia working at a film school there. Only recently I was in the desert, also in Australia, or in a tiny village in Italy with Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara. I work all over the world, and I always try to take the kaupapa of what we talk about here in New Zealand with me. That's part of of what helps me achieve a shift or achieve difference in the way that the arts can be practiced. But my travels and my experiences on set, at festivals, and inside institutions tell me that we lead the world in pushing the envelope of change in the creative industries. We here in Aotearoa are at the edge of the Pacific. We're at the very edge of the world, so we are often at the cutting edge of new practice. We've just been hearing about that from the way that you run your business. So inspirational. Theatre is an age-old art. But verbatim theatre, which is the kind of theatre that I practice, is a new fusion of journalism and drama. At this time of such flux and conflict in the world, it's an important way to tell our own stories, to make live theatre immediate, relevant, and impactful. It is in the arts that current events should be emblazoned and explored. Look at the recent vandalism that we've all heard about at Te Papa when Te Tiriti was graffitied. And look at how the Museum of New Zealand, Te Papa Tongarewa, has left that graffiti there as a bracing new work of art. I really celebrate that. Thanks to the CEO there, Courtney Johnson, a woman, may I remind you, visitor numbers to the treaty exhibit have never been higher. That is the focusing power of the arts. During the pandemic, Transmission is the play we did 2 years ago. It charted in real time Aotearoa's pathway to elimination of the virus, foregrounding the voices of Jacinda Ardern, Grant Robertson, and epidemiologist Michael Baker. In this new iteration that we're excitedly working on now, Transmission Beta, the diverse voices include Fetu Malosi, a Samoan frontline police officer, Kirsten Wiig, a vaccine scientist, Caitlin O'Donnell, a fiercely anti-vax protester, Bernard Hickey, the economist, and John Tamahiri, chair of the Waipareta Trust. This new play charts what happens next, the economic and social fallout of New Zealand's renowned COVID response. Verbatim means respecting the poetry of the way real people really said what they said. This means that the storytellers have a responsibility to be inclusive and fairly representative of all of those voices. The drama is not created by the storytellers, it is shaped by the way real events played out. And that is why I'm talking here about this creative and political project, because to be truly reflective and inclusive of all perspectives, and therefore to make something truly inspirational that has the capacity to help create change, we all have to really listen to each other. We have to respect our differing backgrounds. We have to respect our differing perspectives. That is what I learnt from those Zonta women meeting in our living room all those years ago. In 1975, that group of women took me with them to make sandwiches and feed thousands, literally thousands of attendees from all over the country at the United Women's Convention held at the old Winter Show buildings in Newtown, which would become what we now know as Te Whaia, the mother, and where I would later work as the head of acting at Te Kura Toi Whakaari o Aotearoa, the New Zealand Drama School, as you said. The United Nations had designated 1975 as International Women's Year. So in that June, women from all over New Zealand converged in their woolly hats and their jumpers in Wellington, in that really badly heated building, to discuss and create a new future for women in New Zealand. A Google search tells me that participants in the convention were overwhelmingly in favour of free access to abortion. Plus, that year was the first time there was a dedicated space for gay women. That was nearly 50 years ago. And I'm so proud to see that this morning girls and women in New Zealand are still carrying that flag of inclusion and inspiration. So, to conclude, I'm thinking of our mothers, our grandmothers, and our great-grandmothers this morning as we celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you, Dame Farah. Thank you, Chloe and Florence. Thank you, Louise, Belinda, and Arsena. Happy International Women's Day to us all.
Dame Miranda, on behalf of the Zonta Club of Wellington, I want to extend our sincerest gratitude for your incredible contribution to our International Women's Day event. Thank you for taking the time to share your valuable insights and experiences. You are very special to us, and all the more special, as you have just mentioned, because your mother, your mom, Dame Kate, is a chartered member of our Zonta Club. So please accept these roses as our symbol of gratitude to you.
Thank you very much.
Whoa! I am inspired, I am in awe, and that was a beautiful wrap-up. Thank you, Dame Miranda. And a massive thank you to all of you for your participation and your eager ears this morning. I hope you feel like I do, uplifted and inspired by our magnificent speakers this morning. I hope you leave refreshed and with renewed energy to do what you can to embrace equity in our lives and to continue inspiring inclusion in the ways that you can. Listening to the key messages of our speakers reminds me of the Māori whakatauki, ki te kotahi te kakano ke whati, ki te kapua e koe e whati. Alone we lack, standing together we are invincible. I now have the pleasure of closing our event in the Pacific way, because I'm Tongan. In my heritage language of Tongan, I will now give thanks that our gathering has concluded positively and to ask for blessings for each and every one of us. This prayer is very special, and I might cry because I shouted out briefly our male allies, and this was written by my late father who passed away last September. So if I cry, it's because of him. But to the men in the room, I hear you, and I see you, and I feel you. It's not about you, but that's a shout out for you. It's about the woman. So let us pray. Koe whakataha whakawhamili. Oh, goodness. Kumui ki he ilo moe mahino, ke ma'u. Oh, wow. Oh, thanks, guys. Ke ma'u ha taumua ki he mea kotoa peo ke whakahoko. Tu'u mālohi, pe oa e vai, pe tau whaka apa ki he toko taha kotoa pe. For this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do, stand tall, be strong. Let us show respect for each other. And that, on an emotional note, concludes the formalities of what was an amazing, amazing breakfast. Thank you to Zonta. A big shout out to Zonta, everyone. That's enough emotion. People are crying. We're not supposed to be crying. We're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be inspired. We're supposed to have fun because it's Friday. Official photos will be taken in the banquet hall. If you are part of that group that is arranged for official photos, please make your way to the banquet hall now. Otherwise, thank you again for your company this morning. Keep safe and well, and have a beautiful, inclusive International Women's Day. Off